Okay, so I know this is not a particularly good look for me. I'm in bed. Wasn't planning on doing things. Still not sure what I'm going to do here, if I'm going to bother putting this on. It's certainly not going to go live. I got a comment on a Facebook thread. Um, I wanted to respond, but I didn't want to type it out, especially this time of night. Not that it's late. I mean, it's like, come on, phone, help me out here. It's like not even 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday. Even I'm cooler than this. But I was just in bed watching stupid YouTube flicks and or videos and whatever, and I got this comment, and I kind of, yeah, I don't want to like go, through and type everything and stuff because but that's like effort, and it's almost 11 at night, and the person put a great deal of effort into writing it. I'm assuming, unless it's like a common copy pasta or something, but I didn't get the impression that it was. Anyway, so we're gonna look at it and we're gonna see what we think. So it basically says, oh, I guess I should push that button so you can see. So and I've scrolled down so that you can't see the name of the person for their privacy. I don't want to make their life weird or anything like that. So it says, I don't remember the last time voting actually changed things. Every president since World War I has done something worthy of indictment. Now we're both doing this thing. We're Canadians, and we're doing that thing where we refer to like president and America as the sort of sum total of the America or the political experience. I'm just as guilty of that, um, and everything we're talking about here is equally applicable to the U.S. or Canada, and like it's kind of a non-thing to almost a non-distinction. But I imagine that as this goes through, we'll probably lapse from Canadian politics to American politics and back again. So um, the comment, every president since World War I has done something worthy of indictment, I can't argue that. I don't think that's the point, and I think there are degrees. Frankly, like Bill Clinton could have been indicted on any number of things that he did in his presidency. The fact that they tried and impeach him over a blowjob is fucking stupid. But I'm not the king of the world. So yeah, I definitely agree. Every president since World War One has done something worthy of indictment. Um, Worthy of indictment again is speculative, right? The job of president or prime minister or chief glockenspiel manufacturer, whatever role you want or whatever you want to call that role, is definitely um, you don't get there being all lily white. You have to have some shadows, some skeletons in your closet, and probably a little bit of blood on your hands. Here in Canada, we vote Liberal, then Conservative, then Liberal again, and nothing ever seems to get better. I definitely agree. Um, I have never voted Conservative because the Conservative Party has never been a party that I have felt should or could govern. And what we see is every time the Conservatives come along, we put them in power. They fuck our economy up completely, which is hilarious. But they ruin everything they touch, and then we get tired. And there's corruption scandals and all the other stuff. And the corruption scandals are just like a good thing to focus on. That doesn't actually, mean shit. Anyway, so we deal with them for a while, and then we go, oh, this is terrible. I'm totally not into this. Let's vote liberal, and then we elect a liberal government, and they do largely the same thing. They generally more restore the economy and get everything back on a sort of an even keel, and then they have their own scandals and corruption, and eventually they disappear. The exception was Jean Chrétien, and I'll probably end up at some point doing a huge long video on this. Thought Slime has a video on this, which pisses me off because I totally came up with this idea like when it was happening with Jean Chrétien, which is like going back a long ass way. But you should watch Thought Slime's video, anyways. But the idea of pro wrestling and the pro wrestling culture as a metaphor for politics. Jean Chrétien was the villain running roughshod over the community and or over the territory and just beating everybody up and not caring, which is not who he had been the whole time he was in power. He just suddenly became this deranged nut job, and then instead of having a conservative opponent stand up and be like, we should fight you, we will be the strong person, they actually pulled Paul Martin, who was his number one right hand man. I can't remember. I think he was like the minister of, I don't know, minister of shiny obligatory congratulations or whatever the fuck. And Paul Martin, ran to the ring with a chair and cleaned house and was like, you know what, there's gonna be a new sheriff in town. Yeah. This was like, it was, and of course the people were all like, oh my god, I totally want this new sheriff to be like the awesome new sheriff. And there's people, hey, people are liking my page. That's awesome. So that's the wrestling angle, right? So I watched Chrétien do that. We brought in Paul Martin instead of switching to a conservative, and the end result was that we brought in Paul Martin, and he was fucking terrible. So we stopped with Paul Martining. Anyways, yeah, no, I definitely agree. There's an interesting point that I would add here, though. Here in Canada, we vote Liberal and then Conservative, then Liberal again, and nothing ever seems to get better. There's other options, especially in Canada. And right now, like I'm not a big other options guy in a lot of ways until recently. And the three letters I'll point your direction are NDP, the New Democratic Party. Provincially, Rachel Notley, she saved our province 4 years. Not 4 years ago, but for 4 years in the last government, and we thanked her by peeing on her leg and bringing in Jason Kenney, and then now we can all go, oh wow, that was a poor choice, but we're still stuck with Kenney for a while. Hopefully she runs again in the next election, and I genuinely want her or whomever. As long as the NDP have a viable candidate, I want them to win. And then federally, I mean, if you aren't inspired and impressed by Jagmeet Singh, then you're probably really not paying attention to Jagmeet Singh, or you're one of those people who wants him to go back to his country, which I don't know if you know this, but Scarborough is in Ontario, and Ontario is in Canada, so shut the fuck up with that garbage. So anyways, yes, I agree. When we flip back and forth between two parties with long histories of corruption, we don't get any better. All right, our rights are constantly being stripped. New taxes are constantly stealing from the masses, while big business just adds it to their price. That's a real conservative talking point. And for the record, I don't know the person who's making this comment. That's not me distancing myself from them. So what I'm saying is I don't know that they're like a neocon or whatever, or a libertarian. I don't know their politics. This is essentially a person who I've added on Facebook, unless of course I know them and I don't recognize the name, in which case I am a giant dick. We're not losing rights. Hang on, I need to adjust my positioning because the elbow is killing me, or the shoulder. Sorry. We're not losing our rights. That drives me nuts. Like, I can understand people complaining about certain temporary hassles dealing with a pandemic. I get it. This sucks. I don't know if you know this, but historically, pandemics have never been awesome. Giving up our rights, though, I mean, like, we have eroded some rights in some regards, absolutely. Like, in the U.S., the Patriot Act, and I don't remember what Bill C-692, whatever the fuck it would be in Canada. We've certainly increased the powers of police and decreased the freedom of the people. But at the core, we still have the same freedoms that we've always had. And it's actually, it's fucking hilarious to me that like we don't get what freedoms we have, like especially as Canadians, because we are so inundated with America and American politics. Like for example, the separation of church and state. Um, America, this is a huge ongoing thing. The separation of church and state. And like I 100% get that. Um, but we don't actually have the separation of church and state. When I say that, what I mean is it's a fiction. In the U.S., it's actually built into the Constitution, and they're fighting over implementing it and maintaining it. In Canada, I think it's in the British North America Act that basically was our Constitution prior to the 80s when we was it the 80s? I don't know when we rolled out our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. But it's baked in there that it basically, as an appeasement to the fine folks of Quebec, they said like, yeah, we're not going to do that freedom thing for church and state. We're not going to separate those two. And it was literally a means of appeasing the French in Quebec, who felt that they were being absorbed by Britain. And so we oops, edit. There was private thing popped up. Nothing dangerous, but private. We will cut and paste right there. Sorry, I just had to cut and paste there because messages came up and I was like, hey, I don't feel like these are meant for a yammering with random internet. Fortunately, it was nothing, that it was just a private conversation, nothing like dirty or anything. All right. So I think I commented on the whole concept of rights being stripped and the British North America Act and the separation of church and state. Like I don't think our freedoms are being stripped. I think they're being eroded, and that's normal, and that is the process that we established. Essentially, we create laws, and laws are at a high level, and then we create. One layer down is when we start to implement the laws, and then the police take the law and do whatever the fuck they want with it, and then the judges interpret the law and say, was the law valid? Was the case lawful? If the police utilized a law, that kind of stuff. Frankly, I would be more concerned, a lot more concerned about the fact that things, for example, like abortion rights continue to be brought up, and oddly enough by libertarians, being brought up as things that we need to start infringing on, and that this is a major issue, but whatever. Anyways, so I don't necessarily taxes. There's always going to be new taxes, and I know you're going to go into the carbon tax in a sec. Not because I'm brilliant and foresee it, but because I looked down and saw carbon tax. But yeah, we do pay for. Well, I don't. I'm skipping ahead. So, stealing from the masses while business just adds it to their price. I'm actually. I support taxes 100%. I am, for the record, and I'm saying this just for sort of total disclosure, I'm behind on my taxes, like substantially, and I'm dealing with that. And I have a ongoing relationship with Revenue Canada that they know who I am and they know what I do, and that I give them money. We both have this sort of tacit understanding that I could declare bankruptcy at any time. I don't want to do that. I believe that the money that I owe in taxes is money that I owe, and I have a responsibility to pay. So I don't like having personal conversations about finances publicly, but at the same time, I think it's necessary from a full disclosure perspective for me to just, I'm not presenting myself as anything other than I am. So here's the thing. I think taxes are good. Like I say, I want to pay my taxes, and I am doing so rather than going the easy road and making that go away. And taxes are important. If we live in a society where, our current mode of primarily democratic capitalism with some socialism sprinkled around the edges, just enough to make people, have a decent quality of life, which frankly, I'm an anarchist and I'd rather we went a lot farther with that. But taxes to me are how we fund the things we do. And taxes, I agree that taxes, the too much of the burden of tax goes to the consumer and not enough of the burden of tax goes to big business. In fact, if I was king of the world, big businesses would be owned by their workers, and those workers would not be, we wouldn't be doing ridiculous profits and shareholder value return on investment garbage, because that's fucking nuts. Um, so, I don't all the way disagree with what you've said there, but I'm worried every time I read things like that because it feels like a lead into a real conservative talking point. And I know we're going with the carbon tax. And so, yeah, take the carbon tax, for example. We only emit 1.3% of global emissions, but our forests filter like 30% of global carbon emissions, yet we pay some of the highest carbon taxes in the world. Now, I don't know how true that last statement is. And literally, I'm not saying I don't know how true that is. Like, I don't know how true that is. Um, in fact, I don't know how true any of it is ultimately. I'm not an expert. I can only tell you this. If we emit 1.3% of the global's carbon emissions, okay, cool. If our forests, the lungs of the earth, filter 30% of global carbon emissions, okay, cool. Those are both good. It's good that I'm assuming 1.3% makes us a low emitting country. Certainly, I would assume that we are lower emitting than some of our more despotic uh, big corporation type of corporations. Um, that makes sense to me. Um, Paying some of the highest carbon taxes in the world, that feels like a misleading statement. And again, I don't know how accurate I am, but I feel like, and facts don't care about your feelings. I feel like our amount of carbon tax that we pay, I don't think is substantial. Um, Certainly, like from an end user perspective, I know people who are very upset about how much their carbon tax is, um, but I don't really think it's a substantial taxation. I'm far more concerned with the amount of money that is not taxed in looking at churches, and the amount of tax-free status we give to big corporations like Amazon threatening to, or considering threatening, tells you I'm a lefty. Amazon considering moving to a plant to Alberta, and we were like, we won't tax you at all. You just come on up, it'll be good. And there is a net benefit in terms of employment. I'm not going to argue that. But why the fuck does the richest company on earth have all of these cities that are vying for their business and saying, like, you don't have to pay taxes? Fuck that. You have to pay taxes. You have to pay your share, you motherfuckers. Um, Churches don't pay fucking anything. And I'm not a religious person, and I don't I don't disparage a lot of churches. I think a lot of churches are, in my mind, they are wrong, but they are trying to do good things for people. And I went through my angry atheist phase, and really my anger is for mega churches, and to me, what I would rather see than our current situation is churches that have small numbers and valid small numbers. None of this fucking hiding bullshit that churches and governments and everybody else seems to fucking do. If you're not a wealthy church, fine, tax-free. I would give you tax-free status up to whatever a magic number where you have revenues that are positive more than whatever that number is. But you come up with some viable number that says you're allowed to make a certain amount of money above your regular operating costs, and that money will be utilized. Maybe it's that you don't get taxed at all on anything up to your operating costs, and then you add in every dollar that you do in good services for the community is, maybe you get taxed at like a tenth of the percent of a normal whatever. But when you're buying your fucking mega pastor a helicopter, maybe you should be paying some fucking taxes. So, and again, I'm not trying to defer from carbon taxes. I'm saying I don't know how big a burden it is, but I would bet, as my dad used to say, dollars to donuts, that we're losing a lot more money um, from corporations and from churches not paying taxes than we are from you and me paying out for a carbon tax. So I really don't feel that the statement that we pay some of the highest carbon taxes in the world is valid. Again, I could be wrong. I simply don't know. All right. Our main exports are raw materials, and we use a plethora of different machines to cultivate, extract, refine, and distribute those materials. Okay, no arguments. The farmers, forestry companies, oil, gas, etc. all add the carbon taxes to the cost of business, then it all trickles down to the consumer who pays for it. Meanwhile, the big corporations are still making record profits. I don't, this is one of those points where I feel like it's a right-wing talking point about how we shouldn't pay taxes, but I think the thing that is always missing in it is this isn't a right-wing talking point. This is the flaw of capitalism. Um, that the burden for everything is passed down from the person that creates all the way through those that transport to the consumer. And where we have the need for, for example, we need to have taxes that come from a company, so that cost goes to the consumer. Like that's what capitalism do. Um, if I almost don't like the whole statement because it just misses the point of this is how world works, you know. Like you can be angry for let's take for example that I am a business and I decide that I want to build a plant to manufacture things. Well, I factor in the cost of building that plant into the price. It's called the cost of doing business, or cost of goods sold, or whatever I don't even fucking know. It was a long time that I took accounting classes, and I did not do well. Thus, my owing Revenue Canada money. Um, but here's the thing, like that's how this works. When I make a product and I sell it in especially a capitalist economy, I factor in my labor and my costs and all of these things plus profit. Profit is the part that I'm directly stealing from you, not the labor and costs, because you want the thing that I built, and these are the costs it took to make the thing that I built or made or produced or whatever the fuck. Um, that's that's capitalism. So being upset about the fact that a tax is paid for by the business through the profit that is then generated from the people, like, okay, you're mad at capitalism. You're not mad at liberals. I mean, we're all mad at liberals. They suck. Um, but yeah, like, and the fact that big business is making record profits is unrelated. That is a problem of capitalism uh, squeezing profit from people, the people who are buying their products. Um, this is this is fucking facts, and I don't know why people are not able to recognize that this is exactly the problem with capitalism. I'm not saying that capitalism, like, it's the system we have. I am not tomorrow going to go smash it with my big smashing stick. I would like that. I am an anarchist and a hardcore leftist piece of shit. But, like, how do you... And again, I'm not talking specifically to this person because I don't know what their politics are. So they may very well be like completely on the same page as me and just really frustrated and using some of these same points. But yeah, big corporations, fuck you. You are not just covering your costs and making a profit, but you're making record-breaking profits off of us, off of our jobs. You are firing people and replacing them with automation. You are ensuring that people are doing the jobs of 2 or 3 people. Or if you go back to the 1950s model, you're doing the job of like 20 people. And also that you make record profits. Fuck you. This is exactly the problem with capitalism, and big business needs to stop that. So I totally agree with you that that is frustrating. If that's not a money scheme, then I don't know what is. No, you're absolutely right. This is a money scheme. But this isn't, the carbon tax isn't the problem here. The carbon tax is intended as a punitive, and again, I am not an expert on this, but it's intended as a punitive for wasteful expenditure. And yes, you are correct that I, Joe Consumer, when I buy a product, I am paying that carbon tax. The theory, and I believe that we have seen this in practice effective, is when I am angry about this and I go, I am so pissed off that I am suddenly having to pay everybody else's fucking way, rah, 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 carbon tax, carbon tax, carbon tax. I, as a consumer, start to say, well, I want alternatives. And I look for alternatives that have a cheaper carbon footprint so that maybe the cost goes down for me. And that I am voting with my dollars, as they say. And that incentivizes businesses to do better, because there is no incentive on a business to do better, because a business does nothing but pass costs on to customers. So it's not that the carbon tax is a money grab either by corporations or by government. It is that we're in the stage where we need to now start saying this isn't acceptable, and not it's unacceptable, let's stop paying a carbon tax. It's unacceptable, I need a better solution for the products that I'm using than all of this money going for carbon tax as it filters its way up the system. That's the money scheme, and that's what we need to do about it. So that's a thing. All right, where was I? Then take foreign aid. We use foreign aid as a ploy to financially oppress smaller and weaker countries, then use them for cheap labor for big business. Now, that's an oversimplification. I mean, it would be foolish to say that we never do that. Abso-fucking-lutely. But we give a lot of money in foreign aid to countries like Israel that we're not oppressing, and they are, I would argue, they're not weaker than us. And for the record, anyone who thinks I'm going with the Zionist occupied bullshit, or we're giving money to the evil corporate Jew, like, fuck right off. Not what I'm saying. But and I don't think we're using Israel for cheap labor for big business. In fact, I don't think do we give financial support to countries like what's big offshoring producers right now, like, yeah, I think I don't even fucking know. So you know what? Let's just say absolutely we do. Our tax dollars go to making big businesses more profit and oppressing other nations, hiding behind the mask of we're here to help. Totally agree. I think we do help with some of the foreign aid money that we spend, and I think that's the important thing. I think that, or an important thing. I think that foreign aid is used, not just Canadian foreign aid abroad, but also other countries give us foreign aid too. I may be wrong about that, but my understanding of it is, if we had a sudden crisis, there are countries that would shunt money our way. So yeah, our tax dollars go to making big businesses more profit and oppressing other nations. Definitely, capitalism is garbage, and that is a very true thing. When you say that our tax dollars are going to make big businesses more profit. Fucking A well told they are. And that has always been the way. And that's why, where was I? Oppressing other nations. Yes, we are oppressing other nations. I don't think that's what financial aid is for, and I don't think that that is a blanket statement that can be applied to financial aid. Um, Again, I feel like, this is so close to a conservative talking point about like, why are we giving Bangladesh money when we've got veterans living on the streets? And but there's no desire to make it so veterans aren't living on the streets. So like, eat a dick. Um, there's certainly there's some truth to what you're saying, though our tax dollars are definitely being used to make businesses profit. And that thing that you're not saying there is, and the trickle down effect is bullshit. And so that money stops with the rich and does not come to people like you and me. Oppressing other nations, I'm still the feels like an anti-globalism statement. And frankly, the money that we spend in foreign aid, I don't know enough about how it is spent or on what, whether it's devious or not. But I believe that the necessity for foreign aid is absolutely true. I look at the U.S. and I go, well, their foreign aid is like military spending and all sorts of shit. Like, that's just fucking whack. But I don't know about Canada. I honestly don't put any thought into how we spend our foreign aid, and I don't think that I care. Maybe that's callous of me. Your overall point though is we're spending a lot of hard-earned money as individuals. That money, whether it's us paying taxes or us paying money to businesses who pay taxes, and it all sort of, it seems like it funnels up to this gigantic government business that either throws it away to oppress other people, or gives it to corporations to support them. That's just a very halfway true thing, and I feel like it's the product of frustration. But federal taxes go for a variety of things. They go for federal programs. They go for social services. They go for international summits on trade. They go for like any number of things. Um, some of which are awesome, and some of which are shitty. And that's the hope is that we can enact change to make as little shitty as possible and as much awesome as possible. But again, your complaint is capitalism sucks. I don't know if you know that's the complaint you're making. I don't know if people reading it know that's the complaint you're making, but capitalism sucks. And paying higher prices to have that money filter up into rich people and government sucks. That's absolutely true. Okay, now take debt-based capitalism. Everyone is swimming up to their... Oh, maybe you do know that it's capitalism. That's cool. Everyone is swimming up to their eyeballs in debt to the point that the only way we can keep the system running is to bring in more immigrants and give families incentives. It says incentives, but incentives for having kids. Also, we can pump them full of debt by the time they're 18. Meanwhile, the companies are profiting from all that debt, just getting richer while we're dying younger from debt stress. Okay, that is a terrible paragraph. So yes, we have a system that is designed to chain you with debt. Absolutely, I won't argue that. I don't think that's the government's system. I think that is the system of banks and multinational corporations. And I think there's tacit approval of that in government because, neocon, neolib, anything that is based on free market capitalism understands that you have to control the people, and you control them by, chaining them to their employment. if everybody only worked because they needed something, and then when they had it, they would stop working, and all their needs were met, and everyone was happy, and ducks were, made of chocolate, that would be a problematic system. Um, Capitalism needs credit as a sort of slave owner. That sounds awful, and I hate as a honky saying words like slave owner because it just whips up the right-wing freak boys who want to discredit everything that anyone ever says. Um, but we are very much, yoked by credit, and we're in a society that encourages credit and requires credit and pushes credit and wants you to have credit, and it is very much so you don't have the luxury of making your own decisions. You have to work to pay the bills. Um, I absolutely agree with that point. The only way we can keep the system running is to bring in more immigrants and give families incentive for having kids. Okay, that is like, sorry, dude, but that's an asshole thing to say. First off, the way that we keep the system running is by continuously working and paying for credit and paying interest on debt that keeps companies afloat. And like this, that's basic economics. And I've probably said it bad, but it's fucking 10:30 at night, and I'm sitting in bed reading YouTube or Facebook comments. Um, yeah, immigration is like a net positive. I don't know if people have figured this out yet, but it is a net positive on an economy. Um, Bringing in more immigrants is a good thing, and um, thinking that the system, like, I don't know of any association that would say that debt um, and credit as a means of control is tied to immigration. In fact, I think that's like a really non-relational thing. Like, we bring in immigrants because we have a giant amount of space, and we need immigrants. It's not that people are, we're bringing in immigrants, and suddenly all of our rich people don't have jobs, or even our middle class people don't have jobs, or our low class people don't have jobs. When we bring in immigration, we're actually, generally speaking, we are filling the low tier of employment. And I don't like to think of it like that, but service industry kind of gigs, and those people that are immigrants may very well move on to bigger and better things, but that's sort of the immediate thing. Like when in here in Canada we had, what was that called, the temporary workers program, and companies like fucking I think it was Tim Hortons and shit like that were basically using this temporary workers program to fucking get government assistance to not bother paying their staff, so that the staff were getting paid essentially like through the government as temporary workers, and weren't even fucking like living here full time. This was, temporary worker means you're not a citizen, you're going the fuck home. um, and Tim Hortons doesn't have to like lose money on you being in behind the counter. Like, that's fucked. That is something to be pissed about. But I don't see how the claim that we need to bring in more immigrants and give families incentives for having kids relates to everyone swimming in debt. Maybe the country swimming in debt, but in fact that's bullshit. It's a sovereign currency, and none of that fucking matters. The argument about giving families incentives for having kids, it's not incentives for having kids. That was my kid going outside. Um, yeah, we're not giving incentives for people to have kids. We're actually helping offset the cost of childcare and stuff. And this is again a conservative talking point about incentivizing, so the natural lead in is, we want to have, big welfare families just getting rich off the government teat while I work my 40 hours a week sweating in the big office tower. That's no, that's not the world. We actually give a child tax because we recognize that there is additional costs associated with child rearing, and with growing children all the way through to adulthood, and that those costs are in some cases very difficult for families to deal with. Not everyone gets. If it was an incentive to have kids, then rich people would be getting the same incentive, and they don't. Um, or at least, it's certainly a sliding scale. I don't know where the scale cuts off or if it cuts off because I'm not rich, but certainly, the more you make, the less, as a family income, the less you get for child tax. This is just a thing. Um, so yeah, I really don't agree with that. Also, we can pump them full of debt by the time they're 18. I again, I just that's oh, again, that's just a thing that I think is inaccurate. Like, if you're 18 and how do you have debt when you're 18? Like, aside from maybe getting like your first ever MasterCard or overdraft or some shit, like what fucking 17-year-old kid has a gold card? Like, certainly there's a problem where we are continuing this cycle of credit and constraint that credit puts on you. But we're not, like, kids at 18 don't have debt. Um, and we're not raising kids and like giving them debt and releasing them into the world. Like, that's bullshit. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's bullshit. Meanwhile, the companies that are profiting from all that debt just keep getting richer while we're dying younger from debt stress. Are we dying younger, really? I'm pretty sure, and again, I haven't seen up-to-date data, but I'm pretty sure that humans are living a pretty fuck-off long time. Um, I feel this is one of those, facts don't care about your feelings things that again it really feels like a conservative talking point. The harping on this idea that we're all dying younger from debt stress. That's awful. I don't want to die from debt stress, and I certainly don't want to die younger than I should because of all the debt. But I don't think that's real. I think certainly there are people who are really stressed and chained by that debt that they hold, and that is terrible. And I would personally be more than happy to see that debt just fuck right off, and the companies can suffer. Certainly, companies that are, like the predatory lenders, banks, and government are putting pressure on people. Like, I mentioned earlier, I've been dealing with the CRA and getting my own shit in order. But no matter what that number is, when you owe them money, they're like, so how do we make this go away in the next 3 months? And in my case, that's completely like impossible. Like, it's ridiculous. Um, and they're just, I've had them say to me, well, I guess maybe you should declare bankruptcy. And I laugh and I'm like, are you sure you really want me to do that? Like, I don't own fucking anything. This house, don't own it. Don't own a car. Don't own anything of any value that you could take. So literally, you would get my pocket change and I'd be done with the debt. I have utmost power in this scenario. And the only reason that I choose to resolve this situation is because I feel that this is my debt to pay back. And maybe I'm, a wage slave or whatever. I absolutely believe, for the record, in that concept of a wage slave, of a system that has been built to shackle you with debt and make you a slave to that system to pay your debt. Um, that is definitely, I believe, the world we live in. And I'm really not trying to defend that world when I talk about 18-year-old kids not having debt. But 18-year-old kids don't have debt. They have all of the preconditions that we have built into them to get debt. And we continuously tell them that it's the most important thing that they should do is get debt. Buy a house as young as you can. Buy cars, own property, own land, own whatever. And it doesn't matter. You just mortgage the fuck out of your future because you can work it off. I had a student loan. I paid it off. And I calculated at the end that I think my student loan was around like 9% interest. And I think I paid like 2 times for the school that I went to. That's fucking sick. When you think about, 9% versus what, credit card companies are charging you, like, in some cases like 23, 24, 25%. Like, it's usury. It's absolutely, it's a fucking complete racket, and I don't in any way support that, and I don't in any way support a system that requires wage slavery. I say we would be better suited to smash it all. But the argument that this is the reason why we need poor families to, shit out babies so that we can, smack them full of debt and send them out, like, it's not even a full thought, right? So we're saying that everyone's so in debt that the system can't handle it. So our solution is more debt? Like, how does the system handle more debt if it can't handle current debt? And I don't know. It's a bad statement. I'm sorry, dude. Bad. Then there's a private prison system making billions from keeping their prisons full, all mandated by the government. So Canada, again, this is that flipping flopping between Canada and the U.S. thing. Canada doesn't have private prisons as far as I understand things. I may be wrong on that. I am not by any means an expert on the Canadian prison system, but certainly conceptually, the private prison system making billions from keeping their prisons full. Fuck yes. This is again a problem with capitalism, and that what we've done is we have criminalized everything. And fucking, I'm watching videos today as it's a Saturday and I'm just chilling, and I'm watching videos and people are saying shit like, somebody offended somebody and they should go to jail for that. My kid was talking about a friend of his who, they're having a altercation of words, and my kid said something to the effect of like, you know what, stay the fuck away from me or you'll wish you did. And the guy's like, oh, that's it. You're threatening me and I want you in jail. Like, we have to stop thinking about jail as the place to put people who make us annoyed. We like the drug thing, the number of charges that are essentially bullshit. Shoplifting is bullshit. Sorry. Yeah, there should be ramifications for people who are stealing, without the necessity to steal. And that's, like, I don't want to be the one that draws the line of what's okay and what's not. But it's fucking ridiculous that we're putting people in prison for dumb shit like that. Now, I know you don't typically go to prison for stealing. I'm sort of overstating my case. It confuses me, like, greatly, that we are, we have this system, this private prison system, because it is enforced slavery. And I absolutely, I think that the public prison system is fucking terrible, because we're not looking at, we're creating an economy around punishment, not around rehabilitation. If it was around rehabilitation, I'd be okay with it. It is around punishment, and that's fucking gross and sick. I don't support private prisons. I don't support public prisons. I would definitely, prisons have their place. You know, if you have Charles Manson, you don't want him to be out in the world. Um, Serious, dangerous public crime, fine. You wanna throw up a whole bunch of criminals in jail. Let's start with the rich, because they're again no not Lily White. Fuck those people. Start with government officials. Anyone that's played the game and won probably is a fuckbag who deserves to be in jail. Sorry, that's how I feel. Um, so I read this whole thing and I replied to it, and I still don't know if this is conservative or anarchist. Um, I get your frustration. I really do. I feel that frustration. Um, but I also think you're falling into a trap of um, expecting the current system to fix this. And it won't. Joseph R. Biden is not going to make things better. There will be individual things that he makes better, and I think that Donald J. Trump would make things a piss load worse because he was a dangerous narcissist, possibly a psychopath, and certainly um, devoted solely to the cult of his own personality. And 4 years of watching that from up here in Canada was just plenty terrifying. And now here in Alberta, we've got Jason Kennedy to watch and be like, yay, you really wish you were as tough as Trump, which is, even just saying that feels gross. Um, the system as it stands right now will not fix itself because it has no reason to. The people who are the end beneficiaries of all that we've been talking about, are the wealthy and their government cronies. And yeah, it frustrates the fuck out of me. I don't think violent revolution to anarchism is the answer, but I also don't think it's not the answer. I think a staged approach that resulted from the people taking power back from their organizations and government and standing up in the form of things like unions and consumers groups, or consumer advocacy groups and stuff. Um, yeah, that's how we make change. We make change by, when we vote for as good an option as we can because we're given a limited number of options in the current system, and that sucks, but that's life. And we have to be active. We have to be vocal about what is acceptable and what's not. So yeah, you don't like paying carbon tax. I don't like paying any taxes. Ultimately, that's not true. We've already been down that road. But like, I get, if you don't want to pay carbon tax and you don't want to pay a corporation's carbon tax, find corporations that are generating less carbon tax cost. Like, that requires work on your part and on the part of people, like-minded people. Because the fucking government isn't going to fix the world. They're actively going to try and fuck it. The government isn't going to tax corporations. They've established this. Um, you know, we keep cutting their taxes and putting more of that burden on individuals, and then they pass that burden on to individuals too. We're at a breaking point, absolutely. And the question is, do we break by just shutting the fuck up, or do we break by actually getting involved with meaningful change? And in the form of trade unions and consumer advocacy groups and pressure on government and pressure on business and well, I wouldn't even bother with pressure on business. Pressure on business is a fucking joke. These are the ways that we start to bring change. We will not end bringing change with these, but we can at least get the start. I don't know. And the final comment is, I could spend hours on this, but I think you catch my drift. Well, I do, and I have spent an hour not typing but babbling on a reply. Um, to the original commenter, who again, I'm trying to maintain your privacy by not including your name here. I'm happy to talk more. Um, and I don't know, it's entirely possible I've misunderstood every single thing you've said. Um, so sorry if I did. Um, but yeah, that's how I would reply to this comment. And I feel your pain. I don't know that we agree on the culprit, and I don't know that we agree on what the resolution looks like, but these are my thoughts. Thank you for listening.